Alright. So, finally, I got the new one in. I took all this stuff out of the old one. This was all pretty much just brand new junk. New clutch. Because let me tell you, I got tired of driving on these old ones. If you go to use a junkyardish style engine, buy a new clutch. I cannot express enough to buy a new clutch. Actually, buy a new variator kit, new belt, all that. Why? Because this stuff here sits and it cracks, and I've just had these break while driving. It's a no-brainer. While you got it apart, might as well add a little thing. It's only it's like about $30, 40, maybe 50. I know the 50 cc's are like $30. It's really inexpensive, and yeah, getting that bolt in was difficult to say the least, but it is a lot easier if you just use this rather than doing how I used to do it, which was these two bolts. I used to think, oh, well, I could just pick up from this. No. I literally sat on the ground, balanced this engine up with my knee, threw a bolt in, lifted the back half up, threw a shock bolt in. I can't find that shock bolt. It apparently took off on vacation, didn't tell me. I still have to tighten this here up, but I don't know if you can tell. Might be able to. Also, that broke, so ignore how I have rigged that. But it should be noticed that when you bolt the engine in right, things go together a lot easier. Like, wrestling the carb in is now super, super easy. Well, it's still difficult, but it's easier. Why? Because now I actually have space. Before, this was all pivoted back, and then you barely had any room at all to get the carburetor out. You had like half an inch of room. Now I have about 2 inches of room to play around with. I am happy for that. The downside of these junkyard engines is kickstart. Now, I should have looked this one through, but I got it for free, so I didn't really care. But you might notice right there, that dowel. Yeah, that's butchered. And that's probably why this thing didn't have a kickstart. But all this is butchered. Stuff was just laying down in here, and look at that. There's still a lot of garbage in there. Good thing I'm not picky. But, yeah, there's just some stuff you got to look out for when you get, junkyard engines. You gamble, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. There's really no answers out there. For example, this, I'm going to have to drain the transmission, put in some more gear oil, because this was broken off, and the guy I got it from said a kid just kind of let it sit in water. This engine was actually locked up. I tore it down. I blew any water out of it. It was actually still full. There was no water in it. But the kid left it sitting without a carburetor on it. It locked the whole engine up. So I took it, I busted it all apart, took the head off of it. As you see, well, I'm going to do it this one, because I'm going to save this stuff, probably bust it all apart, and get ready to build a 172 or something like that for my trike. But anyways, so the kid basically left it like this. Water got in, it froze. It was literal just rust and water. I opened the head, literal mud water fell out of that engine, which we put in. So this should be fine. What to do with the seized engine? You're going to pop this off. You got 4 nuts. You're going to pop them things loose with an impact. But somebody's going to say, oh, don't do that. Impacts are dangerous. Blah, 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 blah. Put it on one. Send it. It'll be fine. I guarantee you. Before you do that, pop this thing out. That's your chain tensioner. You're going to have a string to hold the chain taut. pop this all off, you're good. So then you get down in there, you do what you need to do, replace your cylinder, or in my case, I just pop the valves out, reground the valves, and I unseized it with literally hitting the impact on this bolt. Came free. I still wasn't perfect, like, I'm a perfectionist. It still wasn't perfect to me, so I took the cylinder. I didn't even take it off. I just put a dingleberry hone on it and honed it out a little bit with a hand and some sandpaper. It is not conventional by any means, but hey, if it gets you by, well, it gets you by. I'm not proud of it. But that's, I guess, how you unseize it, is first off, use the biggest impact known to man and not the Ryobi. Air impact, and something will come unseized, that's for sure. Second, regrind the valves. It doesn't even matter if it has compression, just regrind the valves. They're going to go awry, which is what I did. We have actually more compression in that junkyard engine than this one, actually. Yeah, I can feel by just turning it that has a lot more compression. Or it's binding and we're going to blow up a valve. One of the three, but I doubt it. Yeah. So, that's about it for the engine swap. I wish it was more of a tutorial for you guys, but it's trying to rain. It's sun's going down. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm wanting to eat. All that stuff. And I take care of my stomach before anything else. So, also over here to wire it up, connections you're going to want to look for when putting these engines in. Starter, you're going to need a short, stubby Phillips. Put your starter connection in. Your stator connection should be a 3 to 4 wire plug from what I know. And then you got 2 separate wires that plug in up in your harness. You have your fuel line, your vacuum lines, which go to your intake back here. And then if you run an intake box, you have your intake box to hook back up if you didn't take it off already. Your exhaust is 2 bolts down here. That now is the opportune time to change out the gasket. So, that being said, what did all this cost? Well, this is kind of a budget engine swap because this is just a vehicle to get by around. This isn't my trike. My trike usually gets high dollar stuff. For example, quite literally, this whole engine I got for free. I have a buddy of mine, he trades in four-wheelers and all that. But let's say you couldn't do that. Well, if you must know, this is a marketplace engine that I bought. Yeah. I paid $80 for the entire scooter. That's my recommendation to anybody wanting to do an engine swap on a budget. Just simply put, buy the whole scooter. Buy the whole thing. But find one that's been wrecked, the plastics are destroyed, it's owned by a meth addict / crackhead, it doesn't matter. As long as you get a bill of sale, you're typically fine. Just don't buy from some shady guy out of a warehouse at like 4 a.m. All you're really going to look for when you're buying your parts scooter, which for a Chinese scooter you're going to want to do, is turn this engine over. Pop this cover off, pop that side cover off, it doesn't matter. You're just going to want to spin it around. And hey, if it gets hard to turn, that's okay. See how it's easy to turn, and then it kind of, yeah, that's good. It has a compression stroke. If you could just twist it round and round and round and round and round, don't buy that because it has 0 compression. I mean, you're gonna do valves anyway, but For all you know, it could be a cracked piston, blown head gasket, which, I mean, they're cheap, but still, you don't know if anything's warped. Just don't get it. You know, especially if you're a poor fella like me. Second off, try and buy it as complete as possible. Usually parts scooters run you around $100 to $200. Now that being said, that's a lot cheaper than buying a whole thing. When you go to buy one, just make sure it turns over if you're really after the engine. If the engine turns over, odds are it's a good case. Make sure the case has no cracks, it's got oil in it. Try to even fire it up if possible. Or just get the starter to turn. Just get the starter to turn. It's still a gamble that the engine might not. But hey, if you gamble, you lose. Honestly, I recommend buying the whole new engine, but not all of us are exactly rich, and a lot of us just use these things to get around town. Hook your starter up to a battery, hook it up to ground, crank the engine, it cranks, cool, pay the man, haul it on your trailer, get to swapping. You might say, Devin, what if he doesn't let me take it apart? Well, I wouldn't let you take my engine apart neither. Honestly, assuming your previous scooter has a working transmission, let's say transmission's bad. You pop this all apart, gasket's $8 on Amazon, put you some new gears in, you're fine. Or not new gears, but like your old ones. Pop out your old ones, swap it all over, you're fine. Is it gonna take a lot of work? Yes, but hey, what would you rather do? Buy a new engine or replace gears? In my case, I found this scooter. Guy knew nothing about it. All I wanted to know is if the crank was good, because this wallowed out key thing has happened to me before because the crank wasn't tightened up enough. Essentially, the crank was good. It spun. It held compression. I kicked it over with a battery. It kicked over, tried to bark off. And I said, okay, if it tries to bark off, then it meets the requirements. Brought it back home. I ripped this engine here out. I ripped everything I could off of that parts scooter before I junked it. Everything. The wiring harness, every single light and bulb, rip it off. If you're doing one of these engine swaps, or even a 50 to 150cc engine swap, rip all of it. Keep it. Junk the rest if you need be. If you're doing a 50cc to 150 swap, keep your frame. Keep your parts engine frame. Because you're going to need to cut and fabricate to get your 150 and your 50cc. Typically, I find that the best parts scooters to find are from crackheads. Not really. They have the plastics all beaten up. They're not hobbyists, or they don't drive them around like we do. They just want to get it out of their yard. And there's a lot of them. Usually, they quit running because of valves, because of stator, or CDI. Those are the three things that I know of that typically kill these engines. And people waste money on them, they never fix them, and then they're like, you know what? I don't want to see it again. And they throw it for sale for like $100, $200 during the wintertime, which is the good time to buy these things, by the way. Now, how much did it cost me? Well, again, $80 for essentially, this had 80 miles on it. Allegedly 80 miles, according to the odometer, which we know is never reliable. Internally, based on chain stretch and all that, I assume this has about 500 to 600 miles put on it. Maybe even 800 miles. Very low miles for these. Lightly used. Totally. Again, that's a good buy for one of these engines. It's a very great buy. Also, I got a bunch of spare parts. That means you get a spare clutch, bell, get Kickstarter in some cases, variator. I mean, the one that's on this is junked. I mean, it's got corrosion all over it, but you can shine it up. You can not polish it, but you can still make it usable. It's not the best, but it gets you around. Again, we're doing things for budget. Most people that do things for budget are guys that cruise these things around or drive them to work. Usually. Or maybe you got it for a kid, something like that. You get the point of budget. So, that being said, also, I paid for new valves. Now, how much does valves cost? Well, you're going to want to buy a C-clamp. I bought mine from Amazon for about $8. You're also going to want to buy a sacrificial socket. Find one in a junkyard. It doesn't matter. As long as it fits on top of the valve, like, there's a big round spring retainer. You're going to put that on there, crank it down, pop your valve keepers out to get your valves out. Okay, cool. Either buy new valves, or what I did with this one, and what we're going to see what that's going to be like, regrind the valves. Now, how do you do that? You can buy valve lapping compound. So, I paid overall about $20 for just the C-clamp and the valve set. I've paid about $25 in total for that, which means new springs, new keepers, new valves. You keep your old head, and you could spend money for valve lapping compound. It's like $6. You put it on there, and there's tons of videos out there that tell you how to lap valves. All you're doing is rubbing the valves together, giving periodic breaks, and what's happening is it's got these grainy bits that cut in a new seat for the valve and make it seal. Essentially. Now, I did the ghetto way because, again, budget. Maybe not everybody out there can buy valve lapping compound. This is something I have done for years across lawnmowers, hell, even some cars. Now, I reckon those engines kind of got junked later because, well, derby, but not the point. It still worked, and you're going to laugh about this and go, what? Toothpaste. Yes, toothpaste. You're going to want a fine grit toothpaste. Toothpaste comes cheap. You can go to Dollar Tree and buy it for $1. You take you some of that, you put it on the valve. One day I might do a video on lapping valves, that sort of thing. And you lap it. Now, reckon it's going to take a lot longer than valve lapping compound because the grit is different than valve lapping compound, but it still laps nonetheless. And if the seal isn't too bad, it actually works, especially on new valves. The seal is excellent. You're just regrinding the head. And you know what? It made this engine run for I don't know how long. And it's going to make that engine run again for another I don't know how long. Mosquitoes are killing me. Anyways. Essentially, this is the bare basic ghetto. Now you might be going, well, that's not the right way. Yeah, it's not the right way. But if you need a break and you ain't got the money, well, that's the way you got to do things. Now, like for example, the guy that owned this engine, how I know it's not no 80-mile engine is because there's this red silicone. It's red and white, yeah. See that? Red and white silicone. Yeah, that is silicone. Now, you might be looking at your screen and going, okay, that's your silicone. What about it? This guy did it the wrong way. Well, the wrong way. He put orange RTV all over this, which you're not supposed to do, and it held oil just fine. It ran the 800 miles, didn't it? If it works, is it really a bad idea? Anyways, off the topic. So, overall, I spent about $25 on an $80 engine. I spent a total of $105. Yep. Now, ideally, you want to buy them with a carb. Okay. Let's say you don't have a carb. Let's say it arrives just like the starter, $20, carburetor, and about another $20. You're again looking at $145. Gotta buy a new CVT? Cool. You can buy a new CVT kit off Amazon for about $50 from what I remember. So we're looking about $185. New stator. Okay, let's say it needs a stator. I'm gonna tell you how to get around that. 9 times out of 10, I actually have a stator that proves it. Your stator, you see how it's burnt black? Yeah, that exciter coil's dead. Means you're not gonna get any form of spark at all from this stator. This is one that I actually rebuilt myself. You can tell by the poor solder. You know what I did? I don't even use this on mine. I managed to delete that. I resoldered it. It charges about 14 volts because I rebuilt it. And then I ran a DC CDI. DC CDI costs you about $10. A switch costs you about $6. And a little tiny roll of wire you got laying around somewhere, hooked directly to your battery, $16. I'm sure you've seen a video of me hooking up my switch backwards. That is my CDI kill switch. That cost me $4. Not even 4, it cost me 3. So you're literally sitting right at $200. Don't even have to pull out the stator to change it. You just swap the CDI to DC. Now, I reckon that's if this thing charges. If it doesn't, okay. Let's say you have to swap it. I'll tell you, it's not very budget, but it still works. 11-pole stator conversion. If you run the new modern day 8-pole stator, that stator bell will hold an 11-pole stator. All you have to do is buy the stator and then buy a 7-wire or 5-wire rectifier. Now, again, yes, I reckon it costs money. Well, it costs you about $30. Again, you're looking at about under $250, plus taxes on all that, and shipping. That's still all right. You still get an entire engine that's already been broken in, mind you. You have to break in a new engine nowadays. I have had a brand new GY6, and it flatlined. Because, yeah, that's just China nowadays. See, you already have the cases, you have everything for this engine now for $250. $250. Run that through your brain and compare it to a brand new engine that, mind you, has a stock stator, stock CDI, stock all of that. 11-pole, you still run that DC CDI. You have plenty of power to charge up your battery. You will never have charging issues ever again unless there's something wrong with your wiring. Those ghetto stators, they worked for about 2 to 3 years. Never had a problem out of them. The only reason why they quit working is because somebody didn't install it right. And I agree, they're very finicky. You just gotta be careful. that all being said, that's about as much as I've spent on this. I actually have an 11-pole stator I bought that I will be showing how to do an 11-pole stator kit conversion. The Ghetto way. And I think that's about it for these swaps. And, yeah, that's how much it costs if you really need a junkyard engine. Or, there's another thing you can do. Another little pro tip. Go call up your tow yard. Yeah, go call up your tow yard and ask them if they have any stored scooters that no one ever paid on. Tow lot specials is what they call them. And you will be shocked how cheap you can get away with one. I've had friends of mine get away with like $50 for the entire scooter with the title in the glove box, and he got a whole $250. It ran, it drove, didn't knock, it didn't smoke, didn't do anything. It ran perfect. Go buy you one. And hey, it might become your new daily driver. Or it still makes a good set of spare parts. What'll happen is a lot of times they get stolen. People, they get recovered, but then people just don't want to fix them. They get left behind some way or another. And now it's in your front yard, spare parts. And again, you just got an amazing deal for a budget engine swap. So, I know it sounds like I'm just yammering on, but this is good stuff to know. Really great stuff to know. But, anywhoos, I'm going to clean up here. I'm cold. I'm tired. I smell. The mosquitoes stay away from me, which I'm pretty sure that's a bad thing. So, yeah. Tomorrow morning, I'll probably make a part 3 of hooking up the carb, firing it off. I've still got that little tiny exhaust pipe to hook on that makes me worry I'm going to burn up a valve. So yeah. Also, that head's from this engine. And that head is from that engine. Huh. And that head actually runs remarkable. Even for low compression, which I'm pretty sure is rings in that engine. But we're going to fire this thing up tomorrow on the next video, I guess. And it would be 15 years since this engine last ran and drove. Again, I fired it. It barely barked off. It was seized. It was actually underwater back here from what the guy told me the kid had done. Yeah, he kind of really abandoned it. But I'm not giving up on it, and I think I can make a daily driver from it. Unlike that guy with the world's worst exhaust on the back of his car. Anyways, but yeah, that's about all. Anyways, I better get out of here. See ya.